Hello everyone, Republic Jim here. I'm out in the barn for another workout, but wanted to do a quick update real quick on an economic situation coming up. I know some prepper channels have touched on this a little, but other than that, the media has reported very little on it. There are a couple of brief articles, but it's been 2 solid weeks now since this event happened, and it's not going to be an instant fallout from it, but because the media is just kind of killing the story and burying it and trying to avoid telling people, I figured for anyone who's interested in preparedness and just planning ahead and such, and hasn't seen anything in the news, thought I'd do a quick update about this. So what I'm talking about is the petrodollar treaty expired on June 9th. That was originally put into place 50 years ago, back in the days of Henry Kissinger, when he was the Secretary of State, I guess, and they arranged the treaty with Saudi Arabia, and it's something a lot of people really don't know much about or pay any attention to. And I'll admit I'm far from an expert on economic stuff and global treaties and all that, but I've paid enough attention to understand that this agreement lapsing is not going to do anything good for our country's economy. So basically, when they made the petrodollar agreement with Saudi Arabia, it was that the Saudis would only accept US dollars for payments for gas and oil, I guess oil, because we refine it in other countries. But anyway, they would sell their oil strictly for US dollars. And of course, with them being kind of the heavy hitters in OPEC, then the other members of OPEC went along with that, and everybody just had to buy oil from any of those countries with US dollars. That became the standard and became the de facto global reserve currency that everybody used for that, and they wanted to invest in it. So other countries were buying up lots of US bonds and getting their hands, buying dollars to buy oil. And so that kind of artificially propped up our economy for decades. And it just allowed our government to continue with runaway spending, and they would just keep getting further and further in debt, but they would sell bonds, they'd issue these bonds, sell them, other countries would buy them, so because they're investing in dollars, and selling those bonds helped to stave off and kick the can down the road on this whole huge national debt that we have, which, if anybody's paying attention at all, it's some ridiculous amount of trillions of dollars in debt that we have now, and the interest rates alone run into billions of dollars, and that's all been propped up because we keep having other countries wanting dollars to buy oil. But of course now that all goes out the window because the Saudis have agreed to sell oil for other currencies. So Chinese, Russian, the euro, whatever, they can all buy oil with their own currency. They don't need the dollar anymore. So suddenly that's going to greatly decrease the demand for dollars, which is going to devalue them. And like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, it hasn't crashed the value of the dollar in the 2 weeks since that agreement lapsed. But in the long run, it's going to greatly reduce the value of the dollar globally, which for any products that we buy from other countries, it's going to cause inflation for those because our dollars are not going to be worth as much in those countries, and so we'll have to spend more to get the same products. So we're going to see more inflation coming, regardless of what the current regime says about inflation being under control and a soft landing coming and all of that. They clearly don't want anybody to know about this whole thing with the petrodollar and how our currency is quite likely to just totally go in the toilet here pretty soon. And we could see pretty serious inflation again. I have no idea how soon to expect that, but it's going to be a ripple effect and take some time because the whole global economy is pretty complicated. And, you know, it takes a while for the pain to be felt, I guess, but we're going to see that at some point. And, you know, of course, then the other thing is with the ridiculous debt that we have and the state of our economy, and if inflation starts taking off again, you can bet that regardless of what the Fed is saying right now and all these so-called experts that are working for the government, don't expect to see interest rates drop anytime soon, or if they do, it should just be temporary, and then interest rates are likely to start going back up dramatically because this is really going to mess with our whole economy. And yeah, could be a really ugly scenario. And like I said, the media, for the most part, they did a few small news items on it right after it happened and just kind of said, well, what's going to happen? And they kind of brushed it off like, it's not a big deal. And then didn't give it any more coverage after that. And it's been pretty amazing, like how little has been said about that. And of course, you know, the resident doesn't want to talk about it because, you know, if we had someone who was actually good at negotiating business deals, he would have been very motivated to try to renew that petrodollar agreement and use some strong persuasion to get the Saudis to agree with that and, you know, stabilize things. And there wasn't a peep out of the White House about it. They just kind of let it just die away quietly and want to sweep it under the rug. But anyway, my totally non-expert opinion is that sometime later this year or going into next year, we're going to see a dramatic increase in inflation again and probably significant increases in interest rates, and it's going to totally screw up the stock market and other things like that you know, I don't know enough to really guess what all the effects will be, but after 50 years of this agreement, to just let it die away without even making any kind of major public effort to renew it, it's just pathetic and just really could create major chaos in our economy. And I'm not feeling too good about the way things are looking right now. And you know, just if for anybody that questions like, who am I to talk about this in the first place, you know, since I freely admit I'm not an expert, but I encourage everybody to, you know, feel free to check out the video I did in January of what I expected for this year and see what I said about inflation and you know, the economy in general, and compare that to what the so-called experts are saying, and, you know, be the judge of who you think has been more accurate on that so far, you know. And obviously there are other prepper channels where they've been saying the same thing all along, and, you know, I fully respect their opinions and how accurate they've been. But anyway, just wanted to give a quick heads up for that, just something to be aware of, you know, especially if you're looking at making any long-term decisions on finances. And you know, just it's hard to tell what this whole thing is going to bring, but just keep it in the back of the mind and make plans accordingly. Hope that's been helpful. This has been Republic Jim. I'll talk to you later.